on the introductions. Do you have anything, Mary?
No, that covered it.
Okay. Well, welcome to you all. And I thought I would introduce myself and where I come from in this process. I am a visual artist. I kind of grew up as an in-house artist at Hallmark for 30 years. And about 2 years ago, I retired and started painting. And that's when I started revisiting all my beliefs about the starving artist and feeling like how, I can't make a living at this. So in the midst of that, when I started out, I came across a new way of thinking about things, a new way of seeing things. And it's really helped me to move past or set aside all these thoughts and ideas around being a starving artist, not being able to make a living at doing what I love. So I thought this call might be helpful to other people that are artists and creative people. I mean, we're all creative people. And so I thought I'd invite Mary on to talk to you about this too. She is an author and coach and works quite a bit with artists and is herself an artist and works with people to help them do what they love and make money at it. So welcome, Mary.
Thanks, Terry. Now, wait, before we start, I just want to make sure of one thing. Everybody on this call has had food today, right? Or you have a source of food, right? Yes? Okay. So nobody's actually starving, right? Because that would be bad. I would call 911 and get some help to you.
Stopping the meeting right now.
I would stop the meeting. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, I'm kind of being facetious, but not really, because, there's this, I worked my whole career as a writer. So while I'm not a visual artist, if you know any writers, they often have that same sensibility, about it's really hard to make a living as a writer and all of that. And before we jumped on here, Terry and I were having a little chat before so we could kind of get our story straight. and I was telling her that when I look back on my career as a writer, I'm kind of amazed, really, that I didn't notice this before, but it really has just occurred to me recently, that the way that I thought of myself as a writer was really limited. And when I actually look at the evidence of my writing career, it's anything but limited. Meaning I started my writing career as a journalist, and I thought I was going to be a journalist. And I had this kind of fixed idea, okay, I really love this whole newspaper thing and this whole journalism thing. And I had a column, a book about books, and I wrote music reviews and all these kinds of fun things, and movie reviews, and I wrote about all the people in my community. And then suddenly I got presented with an entirely different opportunity, which was something I had never done before, which was to try advertising writing. So I said yes to that opportunity because it seemed interesting, and I went and did that for a long time. And as that progressed, I got to do all kinds of things that I never thought I could write, like radio and television things and video scripts, and I became kind of a video producer. And I went on after that. When I left that state of California, I moved to New York. I did more and more video production, as well as like email marketing and all these different things. And so it's a really good example of what I think Terry and I are talking about here, which is that we can have kind of this limited view of what creativity is and how it manifests itself in our life. But if we actually stop to look at how that creativity comes into form, for lack of a better word, it can be pretty amazing what we see.
Yes, and Mary and I were also talking about what we do as artists in our life, how we approach our paintings, our drawings, our photography, whatever it is for us. We, at some point in that process, whether it's before we begin or in the process of doing it, oftentimes, mostly, lose track of our plan, lose track of what we think we're going to do. And the painting or the art, the photography, it kind of moves us, right? It moves us in the direction of whatever it is we're making. It's kind of coming through us rather than us trying to control it. So that's very similar to the way business works. That as we move out with our creativity, leaning into the business aspect is the same way. We have something to share. We're sharing our creativity, we're sharing our, for me right now, I'm learning how to do a video and helping other artists with this. And that is something I never thought even 4 months ago.
Hang on a second. That's odd.
Yes. So someone's not muted.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out who that is. There
Deborah?
we go. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
I think we're good.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'm so lost my train of thought. So
I can kind of pick up on what you were saying.
Okay, go ahead.
So it reminded me of a conversation that I had that actually I can't overstate how important this conversation was, because it totally changed my trajectory in terms of how I saw myself as a creative person and how I saw myself as a quote unquote business person. So I never had the sense that I was any good at business ever. I thought I was lousy with money. As a freelance writer, I did okay, but, I wasn't making like copious amounts of money. And I had this conversation with a coach one day that totally shifted the way I saw everything. And it was that the simple fact that creativity is not at all limited to one or two areas of life, right? So I had this idea that I was a writer and that was pretty much all I was about in terms of my professional self. And I also, like I said, I had a lot of really weird thinking about money, seeing everything as like impossible goals to reach, like I could never make X amount of money. That would be ridiculous because I'm quote unquote just a writer, And this coach said to me, she's like, wait, stop. She says, you realize that the creative energy that you have that helps you to write easily is the same creative energy that's available to you if you want to start a business or you want to make a certain amount of money. Like, it's not like that's confined to one aspect of you. And I sat with her and I was like, what? Really? And she's like, well, of course. You're creative across the board. Creativity is an innate trait of human beings that can be utilized in any way that we kind of consciously want to use it. So I said, so what you're saying is that the ease with which I write is the same ease that's available to me if I want to start a business or I want to earn some money, like doing something else. And she says, absolutely. And I kid you not, that realization, even though I didn't quite believe it, I saw some truth in there. And I kept looking at that truth and going, I have the sense that this is right. And, within about a year of having that conversation, I had started my own business doing something completely different from what I had done before as a coach. And I was making a lot more money than I ever made as a writer within 12 months of that. Now, that's not to say that if I hadn't wanted to stay a writer, I couldn't have. I could have. I wanted to do something different. But that conversation was pivotal for me, that realization that actually this creative force, for lack of a better word, is not just limited to one or two things. It's available everywhere.
So I think that what Mary's saying around that, as an artist, what I'm finding to be true for myself is that as I move forward with my creativity, it starts to expand out in all kinds of different ways. And it becomes bigger than my personal goal of being at my easel or being at my drawing table. And this is all I want to do. And I start to feel this sense of, wow, there's all kinds of things that can happen with my artwork. I really get pretty simple with it. If I could even impact one person with my work, with what I have to say, with what I'm sharing, that would make all the difference. So it becomes less about how can I get stuff for what I do to what can I give. And the minute I started really embracing that understanding and that energy, things have been turning around. It doesn't even occur to me that whatever it is that I'm moved to do in the moment won't work out. And if it does, something else will show up. It's sort of like this, it's not even, I don't even think not working out's in the conversation. It's more of a, we're going along with what presents itself. And next turn, something else might present itself that feels like the next step. So, this Zoom call is a good example too. I've never hosted a Zoom call before. I've been on several Zoom calls, and one of the members here, the people on the call, mentioned something about starving artists, and I thought, wow, I'd really like to hear what Mary has to say about that. And I think I have some ideas about that as well. So that just kind of developed out of this conversation that I had. And art and business are the same way. Where I'm going to be generating money for what I do is almost secondary to the fact that I'm here to give what it is that's coming. And on another call I've been with Mary on, someone was mentioning it as, the exchange of cash becomes more about thank you notes because you're just, I love that. So you're looking at money in a whole different way.
Yeah, very much so. It is. It's more of it used to be, the way that I used to see things, money was at the front of everything. It was always about what could I write to earn money? Or, it was always about that. And then after I had that conversation with that coach, like you were saying, Terry, suddenly it got flipped around. And it was like, oh, wait, I have creative energy of all kinds available to me. So what do I want to do with it? I want to do something new with it. I want to help people in a different way. And then the business part, it was kind of just like when you're painting one of your paintings and something, occurs to you to do, or the paint goes a certain direction. That's exactly what this process has been like too. It's like, okay, I need to have some kind of business structure for this. So what's the first piece of that? Okay, I'll get that. And okay, I'll do the next thing. Okay, I'll do the next thing. And it isn't this big, scary, I used to be really terrified in terms of money. Like, it was a really big, scary monster to me. And now, like you said, it's more of it's so far downstream from where I'm looking that it's almost like the further I go upstream towards this creative aspect of life and living more from there, the money part just is not even on my radar. It takes care of itself. It becomes obvious what to do to bring money in. It becomes obvious what to do in order to produce something that people will find valuable. It just isn't this I don't know. It used to be such a major part of my thought process, and now it's not even on my radar at all. It's all about the creative part.
Something else that we had touched on too, Mary, is this idea that somehow our art or what we create is not something that we should be able to charge for. It's kind of like, we're just, why should I get money for my art? Why would anybody want to pay me? And Mary has some ideas about that. And that is all switched around for me now too. There are people who really enjoy seeing what I produce, and they are glad to give me money for what I produce. My concern is not about that though. My focus is on what I'm creating and what I enjoy doing and what I might do in life to impact another person or help someone else. I don't need to worry about where the next meal is going to come from. I'm not starving. So I don't know if you want to add on to that, Mary.
Well, yeah, I think it goes back to something I was alluding to earlier, which is that when you're simply acting from this creative space, whether it's in art or you know, or business or whatever it is, the focus becomes so much less about yourself, your personal self, and just more on what can I do for somebody else today. You know, I don't wake up in the morning and say, how can I make X amount of money today? That's not what happens. It's similar to what I think a lot of people on this call do if they're engaged with their art. It's what can I create today that might be useful to somebody, or they might enjoy, or they might think is funny, or, you know, whatever it is. And that's where I'm always operating from now. The little Mary that was so concerned about, you know, making a living and all that, she's just way back there. She's there still, you know, and I don't mind her. She's okay, but she's not in the forefront in terms of what I'm doing with my time. And if you had told me this before I kind of came to a new way of seeing things, I would have said you were kind of nuts. Because I really thought, honestly, I would have said, yeah, well, if I take my eye off the ball, meaning money, then I'm just going to go broke, because I have to think about that. I have to think about how I'm going to generate money. I have to be focused on that. And as soon as I took my focus off of it and just kind of let it do whatever it was doing, but I wasn't paying attention, I was more listening to this creative voice, for lack of a better word. That's, not coincidentally, when my income started to go up. So, yeah. And like I was saying earlier, and you were saying too, that I started to become a lot more open to new ideas that came to me of things to create that I'd never done. Like, I had never written a book before, you know, related to anything that I was doing business-wise. I'd never done that. And I've done that multiple times now. So that's a new thing. There are lots of things that I've done in creating this business that I'd never done before and never even pictured myself doing before. But because I don't dismiss any idea that comes to me about how I can use this creativity we've all been granted, life is a lot more interesting. It's a lot less stressful, and it's really exciting to see what can be produced through us, not by me, but through me. It's more like that. And also, you and I were saying this before, that every single person on this call knows that experience of not really understanding how, like, a painting gets created. Like, I can't explain to you how a book gets written. It gets written somehow through me, but I have no real conscious awareness of how that actually happens. It simply does. And that's what I want to keep exploring through this whole, you know, new view on life.
I think a critical piece of what you're saying, Mary, that has really shifted in a big way for me is this getting my focus off myself and what my art, and, you know, keeping my art and doing my art, and it's all about my art. And this started happening for me a few years ago when I really started sharing a lot on social media. What ended up happening with that is a dialogue started taking place between me and people who resonated with what I was doing. And it became this amazing dance between myself and the people I was connecting with. That's continuing to happen with my YouTube videos, and hopefully whatever's coming down the line. I have no clue what that is. You know, also this idea of, we're traditionally taught about business that we have to have a business plan, which is exactly why I never went into business, quote unquote. I worked for somebody else because I hated business. Because this idea of having a business plan was just so foreign to the way I create. You know, I don't go into a painting or a drawing with a lot of ideas about what I'm going to do. I might have a little bit of an inkling of something, but the drawing kind of takes me along on the ride, and I find out where I'm going as I go along. And like Mary was saying or hinting at, oftentimes I finish something and I think, did I do that? I mean, you guys have all had that experience where it's something that just happens so intuitively. So now thinking of business in the way that what if there's no plan needed? You know, I might have some ideas about things I might want to shoot at, but the fact of the matter is, life is presenting itself moment by moment, and we don't know what the next turn is going to take. And as I hold my hands open to that and move forward with a lightness to whatever plan I have and open to what might happen, things just start expanding in directions I never would have even considered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's beautiful, Terry. Thank you. So should we take some questions? Oh, I see a comment here from Jody. Terry, the way you create describes me. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, same here, really. You know, my whole journey with this business has been very much that way. It looks very different now than it did 2 years ago when I started. And as you know, just like with a piece of art, you get to a certain point and you go, this isn't quite what I want. Let me see what happens if I do this. You know, I think I kind of want to go, you know, imagine if I'm painting, I think I want to make the figure face this way instead, you know? So that's exactly what I'm doing when it comes to business. Like right at this moment, I'm having a period of time where I'm kind of reflecting and going, you know, I think I want to go in this other direction and see where that leads. And you just kind of, you can't plan out things, if only, right? Life doesn't work like that.
So just to remind you guys, if you want to ask a question, if you click on the participants box below, you can, down at the bottom of the participants box, hello Tucker, there's a place where you can raise your hand. And I see Monica has a question. Okay, hi Monica.
Hi. So I've had some conversations with you, Terry, about how you work just through your inspiration, some of the things that you go through that just sort of gives you the ideas in the moment, which has been very inspiring to me. I guess I've always been told I need to have a body of work and a theme, and that's always felt very crippling to me. I mean, lately I am just thinking about things that interest me. I had someone over yesterday. It was a model. I had no idea what I was going to do with her. I did wake up frustrated because it was a cloudy day. And I think I was telling you, Terry, that I was a little freaked out, the normal freak out. But I really tried to just connect with her as an individual and see her for her own beauty inside and out. And we turned out to have a really delightful time. She was kind of fun and energetic. She had her own ideas. Imagine that. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go with that. And I'm always a little shaky and nervous about, I'm trying to be too perfect and create the most perfect scene and the light. And I ended up having to climb on a bed and hold a light. And, you know, it was just, I said, I'm just going to go with it. And some of the images, I wasn't even really looking at what I was getting, because that always, I'm not even going to look. I'm just going to go snap. And we tried different things. And, you know, it was pretty spontaneous. She was kind of that kind of person, which was I'm grateful. I worked with people that have been a little bit more stiff and uncomfortable. And anyway, it was a good experience. She ended up leaving, and I went back and I was looking at the photos and situations that I didn't think were going to work. I saw something, and I really felt myself for the first time letting go of this perfectionism that seems to be, I'm in its clutches at times. And it was very freeing. I'm hoping to continue to just, you know, it doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep going. It does matter though. I don't know. So I am a little, sometimes I'm back and forth that way. And I just don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that.
Well, welcome to humanity, right? I mean, we're raised thinking that we have to be in charge of our lives, our art, our careers. And, you know, I'm heavily into the control thing from my past. And over this last year and a half, it's been so freeing to realize that I can still have that controlling voice come up in my head saying things aren't good enough, or look at that mess you just made, or whatever it is it's doing. And I don't have to pay a lot of attention to it. I can just kind of go ahead with what's in front of me. You know, your recognition of this conversation that's going on for you around your perfectionism and trying to control that shoot the other day, that was there, and an amazement around what this other person was bringing, the happy accidents that were happening, you know, all the cool stuff that happened afterwards that were things you didn't plan. So that's such a great example, Monica, of the way creativity works. You know, we can have all the plans we want. Life becomes enjoyable when we see the bigger picture around the plans. And that way too, we end up with all kinds of stuff that we didn't even know was available in life, art, business. So thank you for sharing. Do you want to answer?
Oh, I think that was a great response, Terry. And also, I don't really know what perfect means anymore. You know, I think that in some professions, and perhaps art is one of these, there are things that quote unquote you're supposed to have or you're supposed to do. But it seems to me that the rules are out the window these days. You know, just with the way that art in particular has become so much more accessible to people, both people who want to enjoy it and people who want to create it, that it seems to me that a lot of those conversations are just so old school around all of that. I don't really even understand it anymore. It doesn't make any sense to me.
And even
the same is true in the writing world too, you know, about like traditional publishing versus now the big boom of self-publishing. The rules are gone.
Yeah, that when you mentioned something about having to build up this body of work so that you could present yourself as an artist, you know, the same thing happens in illustration. We think we have to get that portfolio just right. That's when our life will begin, when we can have something to shop around. And what I've found to be true is my biggest impact is happening without that. I never refer anybody to a portfolio. I'm creating in the moment, and I'm sharing what I create, and people connect back with me, and it's happening really naturally. So, you know, once we take off the blinders and, you know, stop aiming at this thing we learned way back in the day, we'll start to see just how many opportunities there are. There's no parameters on what's possible.
That's very true. Well stated, Terry.
Thank you, Monica. Does anybody else have a question?
There's a question in the chat from
Okay.
Jody. It says, what do you say to people who don't have the option to quit their day job? So Jody, you can do what I did and you can get fired from your day job. And not have any savings to fall back on. Because I'm not kidding, that's exactly what happened to me when I they're done that, Jody says, because what happened was that's literally what occurred. It was sort of a mutual firing, although the CEO sort of initiated that conversation. It was obvious that it was not a good fit, you know, with this company. And the unfortunate thing about the timing, if you can call it unfortunate, was that my finances were kind of in the you know what at that point in time. And you know what I did? I said, screw it. I'm going to do what I want. I am not going to do anything just for the money. I'm not going to go get a job. I'm going to work for myself, and I'm going to do this new thing that I've never been paid for. And I don't really care what happens. I don't care if I, you know, my phrase at the time was, I don't care if I have to go live in my sister's tiny cabin up in the woods where there's no internet and I don't have a car. I'm going to do what I want to do because I feel like I have something that I want to share with people that is helpful to them. If I get paid for that, great. If I don't, fine. I'll just live in that little A-frame till I am not alive anymore, I guess. And I really honestly did not care. I had no thoughts at all about money or anything. I just had something that I really wanted to go do. And, you know, it actually has been so interesting to see what has occurred since I made that decision. Pretty much everything that I ever wanted in my life has occurred in the past 2 years because of that decision. Meaning I'm now living in the place I've dreamed of living since I was 19 years old and never thought I would. And, you know, all kinds of wonderful things. I do what I want to do all day long. I enjoy all the conversations I have. So I think that we have this mistaken idea again that, you know, that creativity isn't there for us, and it always is. It's there in everything, even in something that looks really scary, like not having a quote unquote financial safety net. Well, you actually do always have a financial safety net because you always have a new idea. You always have the next idea of something you could try, something you could do. So there's nothing to worry about anymore.
I have a little different history on that piece. Being a corporate girl for so many years, what happened is that last year before I chose to retire, I was starting to make that turn where I was really becoming more and more interested in what it is that I'm here to give, here to share, here to create. And as that increased, as I went along, what I started noticing is there was a natural inclination towards retirement because I wanted to free up my time and my energy to do this thing. So, you know, after that happened, I came into what I thought was an absolute downfall with my finances and scurried around trying to fix things, and then realized everything's okay. I'm just moving forward again with my creativity. I had thought about leaving my job in the past, you know, just retiring or whatever. Not that it was a bad job. I loved my job. But I never had something I was going toward. There wasn't this sense of I don't want to call it purpose, but just a sense of excitement about something bigger. And as soon as that started really getting clearer for me, the movement towards this new thing became so natural. There was no sense of angst around it, or I'm losing this thing, you know, and now I can't go back, and you know, my income is over, and just all the crazy stuff we go through. So I don't know if that's helpful to anyone. I see there's another question from Annette.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to read that, Mary?
Yeah, it says, I find, thanks Annette, and thanks Jody. I find marketing with social media is fun, can give you some feedback from followers and people who like your work, but it takes up such a huge portion of my mornings if I do use it for marketing my work. How do you manage your social media time so you have more time to create and less time self-promoting? I can start with my answer, and then Terry, maybe you can too. Because I do use social media quite a bit for my own business. I do a lot of Facebook Lives on my Facebook page. I run a free group as well as a paid group. But I guess I'm pretty, I don't know how to say it. I don't see that it takes up time. It's what I want to be doing. So I like interacting with people, and I have plenty of time to create things at the same time. So I guess I'd say that it's simply part of my creations all day long. It doesn't seem like it's eating up a certain amount of time every day. And I think I don't have a good way of putting this, but I think when you're acting more and more from this place of ease and kind of going with what occurs to you to do in the moment, it seems like you have more time. A lot of people tell me it seems like I'm everywhere all the time, like they see me online, and it's just, I'm just doing what I enjoy doing. That's all. And it doesn't seem like a lot of work or effort to me. Just on a practical note, though, I would say that in terms of, you know, promotion, if you will, and building relationships with people, I actually find email to be an incredible way to do that. I don't know if artists typically use email very much, but I think that that is an incredible way to create relationships with people. It's been probably the most crucial piece of my business that I have developed over the last 2 years. It's responsible for most of my income. So just putting that in as a practical note.
For me, with my social media, I really relate to what Mary's saying as far as this is just something I enjoy doing. It's another creative act to get on there and share.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't have an interest. It doesn't light me up to stay on social media, to read everything everybody's been doing during the day. That has no energy for me whatsoever. I interact with people back and forth as they're connecting with me. I try to answer every comment. I respond to every Instagram comment that happens that I see. You don't always see them all on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, that's a priority for me, but I also love it. You know, I kind of, the whole thing about connecting with people is really important to me. You know, we spend so much time alone as creatives that to have that time where you're connecting with others is really awesome. So
yeah, I think that you raised a really good point, Terry, which some of you who know me will have heard me say this before. I do not spend time on social media reading stuff that has nothing to do with me. Like, I'm not in my news feed, like, at all. I don't look at that. I only see like the notifications, like if my daughter posts something or whatever. I'm in there creating things with other people, creating conversations, creating Facebook Lives. So my whole thing is create way more than you consume. And that has been also very, very helpful to me. So I don't spend much time consuming at all during the day. I do some if I have something that I really need to learn and understand. Like, I'm at a point right now in my business where I need to understand a technical thing that is kind of been beyond my understanding, and now I need to understand it. So I'm learning. But other than that, it's all about creation to me, not about sitting and trying to take in all. I just, that doesn't interest me either. Create more than you consume. Yeah, I can't remember. I shared a video in my my group where I talked about the percentage of creating versus consuming, and the consuming piece is really low. It's really, really low compared to the other. How about for you, Terry? Is it?
I totally agree with you, Mary. It doesn't. Maybe that's part of the reason that it doesn't feel like me to be in there reading and, you know, really trying to dig into everything everybody's going through, and, you know, whatever politics and religious things and whatever else is going on. I have zero interest in that.
Yeah, me too.
I really get lit up with sharing. I really get lit up with, you know, if I see a post that someone's lost a cat, of course I'm going to respond to that. But I feel like really what I'm here for, and what Mary's talking about, is to create, is to give, is to share. And whatever way I can do that has really impacted my life as an artist. I mean, for 30 years, I had glimmers of this while I was working for a corporation. I mean, I really enjoyed working with the people. It was awesome. But because I was working for someone else, I never really got to really feel what it feels like to be giving from what I have to offer by myself, just me creating in the moment. There was a lot of wonderful collaboration there, but, you know, this has been a whole new journey. And so, yeah, that giving more than, or, you know, giving and, you know, just not even paying much attention to the taking thing. It's the same with money. It's like it's very similar to money. You know, your money is this thing about trying to get. It's, you know, instead of that, is as we're giving and responding to life in, you know, whatever's coming our way and we're working with, those money things become a natural part of the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, money doesn't seem like this thing out there anymore. It seems very much a part of this creative process. It's just a reciprocal act that occurs when somebody likes something. It's a medium of exchange. It's simply part of this natural give and take. It's just a give and take that keeps going around in circles. And because of the way our society is set up, money is part of that circle, and that's all there is to it. It's not, honestly, I wish I could put you in my head from a few years ago. You would not recognize me at all because I was obsessed with money. In fact, I thought about it so often and talked about it so often. My daughter basically told me to shut the F up about it. She's like, I don't want to hear another word about money. You talk about money more than anyone I know, just stop. And I wasn't even aware that I was doing that until she said it. And then, you know, as time has gone on, I've just realized that that is just so not the thing. It's just not the thing. I often now see, and some of you may have heard me say this in other forums, that I think money is incredibly creative in and of itself, because it's kind of like, wow, what can I create that people would find so valuable that they'd want to pay me for that? Like, that would be so cool. It's kind of like that, you know? It's really part of this whole creative process, and I find it really fun to look at it that way. So that's my 2 cents.
And we're also, as artists, people are really interested in us as artists. They really want to get to know us. They really want to find out who the person is behind the work. And I also think that who we are behind the work is a big part of what people are buying, what people are exchanging those thank you notes for. They really want to, they're connecting with what you're doing, they're connecting with what you're saying. Something in the way you paint and how you move in life is attractive, and they want to have a part of that. It reminds them of something. There's a feeling sense there. So it's so funny because, you know, we as artists go into art stores and we spend all kinds of money on stuff, right, to be able to create. And we don't give it a second thought. We're throwing those thank you notes out and grabbing up our stuff and heading out the door. But when it comes to actually putting something out there with, you know, it's part of us. I mean, it's not us, but it came through us, and we experienced it as it came through us, and we're offering that to people. There's people that really appreciate that, and that's how they show their appreciation is through money.
Yeah.
There's no significance to money in and of itself other than just a means of exchange. So I'm like Mary, I came from that mentality of scarcity. Even when I was earning a good income at a corporation, I was still in a scarcity. You know, when am I going to get fired? I was just like constantly looking over my shoulder, you know, thinking there wasn't enough. Mm-hmm. And I was making it all up. You know, I didn't realize how infinite this creative energy is and what we can do to generate an income in life. Mm-hmm. And that's dropping away. I do see we have a few more questions. I think Sab was first.
There's also just hang on one second.
You want to take that question really quick?
You mean in the chat?
Oh yeah. Oh, do you want to? Or Sab has been.
I can't see whose hands are raised.
Okay.
I know Joanne had a question and she couldn't raise her hand, so she was.
She's raised. Okay. So I'm gonna. Hey, Sab, do you want to go ahead?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, Terry. Hi, Mary.
Hi there.
Thanks for doing this. I had a comment for Monica based on what she said. Hello, Monica. I did want to say, though, just based on what you just said about sharing, I adopted this motto a little while ago, and it's serving me well. And it's basically 3 words. It's learn, create, and share. So there is a bit of consuming of some of the crap and other stuff, because then that lets me think, and it makes me a little bit more creative. Then I create stuff, and then I share it, and through sharing I get the feedback, which lets me learn more stuff and create more. So, but it is very dangerous. All the crap in the social media. It's very dangerous. I wanted to say, Monica, I used to be a long time ago, before I came to France, I was in wedding photography and portraiture and stuff like that. And I got a bit frustrated because I really had to follow a formula for the shots. But now, every day, I post a photograph, a street photograph of Paris, and with a text. And my technique is to go into Paris, and I have no agenda whatsoever. I just let Paris speak to me. And I think you can apply it a little bit to your thing. Like, as you said, So I have no idea what photographs I'm going to come home with. So my game plan is go into Paris and let Paris speak to me. So that could be, well, for example, I don't know what the Eiffel Tower is going to look like that day. Or it could be I spot a cigarette packet next to a plant pushing its way through the concrete. I don't know. That's the thing. That's what's exciting. And so Paris speaks to me. I take my photographs. Then I go home. And then I let my image speak to me. And that gives me my idea for the text that is going to go with the image. And that's it. That's my creative process for that particular project.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that. That's another example of everything we've been talking about, because we just don't know until we get there what's going to happen and what ideas are going to come to us and what's going to pop out at us too.
What Paris gives me is so much more than I could have imagined. If I'd thought, right, I'm going to go into Paris and I'm going to shoot this statue that I saw an article about. Okay, I'll come home with a photo of the statue, but it won't be anything as good as if I just let Paris say, I'm wandering through a park and suddenly I see something. That's what's magic. So,
maybe you'll see me next time, Sam.
I don't know.
I wander the streets of Paris for about 2 to 3 hours every day, so maybe we'll run into each other.
Maybe you're one of those weird people I've taken the photographs of. I don't know. But I mean, in terms of Monica's thing, yeah, I mean, don't be worried. I would say don't be worried about not knowing what you're going to do, because the things that will come to you in the moment will be much better than if you planned something. And then you get stressed out because it's not going according to plan and all the rest of it.
I think that's
what I wanted to share.
Thank you for sharing. So, the other thing about that is, you know, what you're saying right there is exactly the same as business and quote unquote making a living with art. You're moving into the moment and paying attention. You're not going in with, it's got to look like this, you know, this statue. It's got to look like this amount of money. You're going in and going, wow, I wonder what's possible today in this moment. What's going to show up is a possibility for earning money at what I do. You know, so it just creates itself as it goes along. And I see a question in the chat from Letitia asking about, I'm sorry, I missed that. Mary, it's above. Let's see. Having to do with the platform. What platform is best for awareness versus selling? Instagram, Facebook, art. I can speak on the art piece. My favorite platform for actual sharing of art is Instagram. But as far as sharing the broader perspective of art, I really enjoy YouTube, because then I can share more from what's coming through me while I'm creating or the process of creating. I find people really enjoy seeing that piece because they can really relate to what's going on in the creative process. Instagram is really awesome if, you know, just for still images. I do share some movement type stuff on there too. So Facebook, I've just started a new Facebook group called Daily Creating Group that everyone's welcome to join. So it's a new venture for me. Mary has a little more experience with Facebook as far as groups go, and you know how that's impacted her life and creativity and moving forward in her business.
I think it's just all about experimenting, really, and seeing what's fun for you and what seems to help others connect with you. Really, it's all about connections to me. I don't care what field you're in. If you don't connect with people, you know, I don't know how people sell anything without connecting with people on some level. There's a question here I wanted you to answer, Terry, that I don't know if you saw because I'm curious about it. Caroline asked, how did you get out of that scarcity mindset?
Well, Carolyn, that scarcity mindset still shows up. So I don't see myself as someone who got out of a scarcity mindset. What's happened, just like when I decided to retire from my job, I didn't change something to make myself leave. You know, I wasn't trying to do something. What happened was something else became bigger for me. Something else was more interesting. Something else was kind of pulling me forward. So it's the same with the scarcity mindset. I still have scarcity thinking. I really thought I was going to get on this call and totally screw it up. So there, it's pretty scarce. So, but I'm here anyway, because the bigger thing I want to do is communicate and share with people. And what happens as I move forward with that stuff is that whole scarcity thing becomes less loud in my head. It no longer takes me down that road as far. Sometimes I go down it a little bit, and then I go, oh, isn't that interesting? And this is what I'm doing now. And the thing about thoughts and scary thoughts or whatever's coming up for you that wants to take you down that road of not enough, it's fleeting. This stuff it's coming, it's habits, it's cultural, and we don't have to spend a lot of time listening to it or any time listening to it. What we're listening for in the moment is always a new thought, a creative inspiration, something moving us into this rather than the scarcity. The scarcity comes, thank you, and you move forward with this again. So I'm not giving a lot of attention to trying to make the scarcity go away. That's just kind of adding more scarcity onto scarcity. What I'm doing is focusing in on what excites me, what inspires me, what I want to share. And the scarcity thing's taking care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can totally relate to that. I could have said basically everything you just said. That I used to think I had to try to do something about my thoughts and my mindset and all that. And as soon as I just stopped worrying about it and went, oh, well, sometimes I'm going to see the glass is half empty. Too bad. I'm just going to keep doing the stuff that I like to do anyway. I realized that thinking has no power at all. It looks really powerful and scary, but it actually has nothing to do with our capabilities or what we're even doing. Just as a really quick, I'll try to do this in about 30 seconds. I spent my entire adult life in what you would call post-traumatic stress disorder type thinking and feelings. And yet I could look back at my whole life. I mean, literally where every day I was in a state of fear and panic a lot of the time. But my life, a lot of really cool stuff got created in my life, even while I had all that thinking going on. I was able to have some wonderful jobs, and I did all that writing and producing and all that stuff that I talked about earlier. I had this child that I raised, I got remarried. So that has been proof to me that no matter what those thoughts are doing, they're pretty irrelevant. They may be giving me a scary experience right then or making me, kind of go, but they aren't really in control or in charge at all. That creative energy is doing its thing, whether we're consciously aware of it or not.
I know we're getting close to the end of the hour, and I'm willing to stay on to answer questions. I know we have a couple questions. Let's take Monica, Shannon, do you want to?
Yeah, I can stay on for a little bit.
Hi, Shannon.
So my question's relating to something that Mary said. And it was, she said that there was a financial safety net that we always have because we'll never run out of ideas. And I see that that's true. Like, I've never run out of ideas. I have more ideas than I have lifetimes to do with them. But that's kind of the problem, is that I have so many ideas, so many potential paths, so many things that look fun and interesting. And I'm not sure, and Mary can correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it looks to me is if I knew that the money part was taken care of, if I knew that either I had a trust fund or a partner's income, or that it wasn't on me to make sure that I still have food on the table and a roof over my head and internet and blah, blah, blah. If that was taken care of, then yeah, I could really just go play and do whatever. But because I feel like I have 100 different paths that I could go down to explore my creativity, and somehow I need to figure out the money piece. It's almost like, how do we know which ideas are worth following and which ones, how do we choose, basically? When you have so many options and so many paths to do, where do you even start? How do you choose? Where do you go next?
Interesting question, Shannon. I was kind of chuckling because, I told you I got fired and had no money, basically. And it was all on me. My husband was not working at that time either. Yeah. And I just said, screw it, I'm going to do what I want. And I picked the thing that looks like it had the most promise right then, something that I enjoyed that looked like it might make me some money. I didn't know, but I just tried it. And it happened to earn some money. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, maybe I'll try it again. You know, and you just kind of have to pick something that looks like it has promise, but you can't know for sure until you actually do something. But the financial safety net is always there, even when it looks like it's not. It's always there. You're not going to actually starve. You will always find a way to eat and sleep somewhere. So you can set all that off to the side and now go do the things that you want to do. That sounds so simplistic, but that's really how it has appeared to me. And I never would have believed any of that before. I thought that was a bunch of poppycock.
I like the
with that term, but whatever.
I like poppycock. That's good. You know, I think the thing that really has been a big time consumer for me in my life when it comes to having all these different directions that are possibilities that are coming up in the moment is my thinking a lot about all the directions I have that are coming up in the moment, or just really like worrying, concerning myself, you know, obsessing about whatever it is, trying to make the right decision. And what I've noticed lately is there seems to be a natural next step that is just a little bit more interesting than maybe another step. And that may shift and change as I go along, but I don't need to worry about this big plan, how these things are going to go, that I can move forward in the moment with the next indicated thing. You know, when you're inside you, what the next thing is. Really, we all kind of do. We've clouded it up with a lot of thinking about what we should be doing and how we need to be earning our money and how that's going to look. You know, it's still there. What's next?
Yeah, and I can see that that's true because the next thing for me was to write a book, and my new book's coming out in 2 days. So that was just like so obvious. I didn't have to do anything with it. But yeah, it's so true that I spend so much time in my mind deciding which of these 100 paths I'm going to walk down that I end up at the end of the day walking down none of them. And then the next day I'm like, I'm still so overwhelmed with ideas that I don't know which one to choose. So you're right. There always is one that's just a little tiny bit.
Yeah. A little nugget there that's
just a little more appealing, and then the other 99 can be there for another day. So
right, exactly.
I think we might have some questions in the chat.
Okay, someone just unmuted me.
Oh, did you have something, Joanne?
Well, I did,
but go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So my question is about like trying things and seeing like what response you get, right? Because I've heard Mary say, just try something, see what happens. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And so, sorry to beat something to death, but I've been painting these birds for a while, and I get really good response on them from people I know and social media, and it's like, it seems like that's where the money is, I guess. But I'm so drawn to a more abstract expression of art, which I'm not very good at yet. Like, I'm learning it. I'm enjoying the learning process. I'm trying different things. But when I post those, people are like, oh, interesting. And, so I don't, I want, how do you, so I'm trying things, but I'm getting feedback on something that is less interesting to me. Like, oh, that's kind of the way to go. So I'm just wondering how you think about that, because I know you also tried the abstract thing, Terry, but now you're enjoying the whimsical animals. So just curious. And Mary too, I think you've tried different things. Do you drop your preferences, or do you, like, how do you work with that?
I never drop my preferences.
Okay.
And the cat agrees. I
have myself muted, but he has a lot to say.
I put them in front of different people sometimes. You don't have to stick to the same people for everything you do either. You can keep doing all the things that you enjoy doing and see who likes which. That's all.
Okay.
You know,
I mean,
That's
I don't know how else to put it, really.
yeah, so I have a sense that on some level that maybe you really do enjoy creating those birds. It may not be what you ultimately, want to also do, these just playing around with paint, abstraction, and non-objective. This cat. Anyway, what was happening for me with the paintings, I have a few back here. Haven't done any painting for a while. Excuse me while I help this young man into my lap. Is there was something in that for me that was about exploration, that was about being completely surprised by what shows up on the canvas. I mean, I'm surprised with my illustration all the time too, but it was so foreign to me to paint that I just wanted to do it to see what would happen. And I didn't have anything on it as far as anyone liking it, anyone paying me for it. I was just doing it to explore. And, you know, when I was posting that stuff, a lot of the people that followed me from my illustration started dropping off a little bit. But I was picking up new people. So there's different people that are interested in different things. My belief is that you move towards what is speaking to you. You can still do birds if that's not it, or maybe that's not as much excitement for you. And then also do this other thing that really lights you up. And your being lit up in the moment with what you create will start to attract people in, because it's that light that you're sharing that really makes a difference with people wanting to connect with you.
I can't emphasize that enough too, Joanne, that because there's another question that relates to this a little bit from Alana. She says she has a hard time getting her work out there, hovering between fear of success, fear of failure, you know, feeling she doesn't know what doors to knock on. It's not about, I hate to keep coming around this, but it's not about me or you. It's about what is coming through us and what other people are connecting to. Because they're not connecting to the piece of art. They're connecting to the fact that that art was an expression of what it means to be human. That's what they're connecting to. So when you can take yourself out of your little self out of the equation, you know, you may be surprised at how many of those bird people will start to connect more with the other things that you do. You may be really surprised by that. So, you know, I know for myself, I'm continually kind of consciously setting my little Mary self off to the side and going back to what can I create today that might be interesting for someone, might be helpful to someone. You know, I'm not afraid to be ridiculed either. I couldn't care less what reviews come up on my books, you know, unless they've said there's a lot of typos or whatever, you know, I'll fix things. But I don't care about that. I'm not there to make people like me. I am here to express something that I'm seeing, and whoever is attracted to that is attracted to that. And that's all there is, really.
I think we can all relate to that as visual artists, and anyone who's here that's not a visual artist, that, you know, your audience will find you as you move forward with that light, that energy, that part for you that really speaks to you and lights you up. Whether it's birds or abstracts or whatever else decides to show up for Joanne in the moment. And I also love that reminder, Mary, about I see this focus on myself and who I am and what people are going to think of me the same way I see this focus on money. It's not what I'm about. I'm about something bigger. I'm moving out with something bigger. I have something to share. And I'm starting to lose track of this me thing. You know, it's still there because we're human beings. We've got it'll come up, and but it's just not that as big a deal as it used to be. I find the more I move into just to continue creating, continue sharing, continue expanding what it is I'm doing, the more the other piece, the no voice, the I'm not enough voice, the I can't do this voice is dropping away. Still there, it's not as loud.
It's just not as loud, and so it's not as obnoxious in your head.
And I just don't believe it most of the time when it talks anymore. I mean, I still do occasionally where I'll just really go down that road, and then I'll kind of wow, and then I move forward again. And I see those as opportunities as well. Everyone can relate to that voice that comes up and says, "I can't make money at this. I'm a starving artist. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough." All those things that go on. If I can share that happens with me too, and there's something on the other side of it that I do have to share, that gives that thing some reason for being there. It's like we all are coming from some limitations that we thought about ourselves in the past. And as we move through those limitations in the moment with what we have to share, that offers other people the freedom to do the same thing. So, there's no bigger gift that we can offer than those transformations of our own lives.
Yeah, that was really nicely put, Terry, because, if you think about the people that you're most attracted to, people that you admire, that you look up to, it's not the output, right? It's not the actual output. It's the way that they are living. It's the way that they are experiencing this big L life, not little life, big life. They've just gone for it. They've, listened to that, that creative spark, and just, and it doesn't matter even what level of quote unquote success that someone has achieved. That doesn't matter to me. I cared more about, somebody who's just really listening to themselves and following that and not paying attention to those, scary voices in their head like we all have.
And, our clarity, our knowing self can even use our scary voices to help people.
True. Yeah.
I mean, my using my own examples of what I go through in the process of creating is what helps to free someone else when they get that voice in their head coming up saying, I can't do this, or I'm not good enough, or look at that crap I just made, or whatever it is that comes up for you as an artist, or I'll never sell this. It's not a bird. It's never going to sell. Whatever we're talking to ourselves about. So yeah.
Well, it's like, I think I told you, I saw an interview where Oprah was around a round table of actors or actresses, and she was the one with the least acting experience, and she was feeling kind of weird about being at this round table because of that. And she said that she had been very nervous about this role that she had done recently, and the other people were trying to get her to say why, and she says, because I was afraid of making a fool of myself. And I thought, see, even Queen Oprah has thinking like that, but does that mean she doesn't go do the thing anyway? She goes and does the thing anyway, So that proves to me that those thoughts can be there, but they're not actually doing anything to stop us from this creative force. Can't be stopped by anything. That would be like saying I could, stop the earth from rotating just by going like this. Like, I'm going to stop it right now. It's not possible. Way too much momentum going there.
I see Jennifer I'm going to unmute you, Jennifer.
Hi.
Hi, Jennifer.
I don't know if you can see me. It's probably better if you don't.
Well, if you want us to be seen, you can start your video down at the lower left.
Okay, hold on. Approve. I don't know. Hi.
Hi, we can see something. Your hand. There you are. Hi.
Hi. So thank you for having this call, you guys. I've been following you, Terry, for a while now, and I love actually, I'm an example of people who love your animals and who love your abstracts now that I've seen your studio. It's pretty amazing. So I so relate to the next indicated step. I hang out with people who do the same thing for the most part. And hold on. I need to hold you with my right hand. There. What am I trying to say? I started a business 13 years ago, and it was all based on following the next indicated step. I've become sort of a perfumer. I have not studied in France, but I've been to France. And that's actually how I make my living now. And I have a storefront and all this stuff. So in February, I was super stressed about the state of the world, and I decided to start painting. And I don't paint. I thought, you know what, I'm going to stop listening to that story, and I'm going to just try to teach myself to draw and paint, regardless of what it looks like. I'm just going to do it for me. And so I've started sharing my process online. I started with watercolor, and then wash, and then alcohol inks, and now I've moved. I mean, I'm doing all of them, but now I've moved to acrylic and trying to do more abstract stuff. And it's been an amazing journey so far. It was about the end of February, and I started posting on Instagram and posting on Facebook, and actually people liked it. And I mean, I really can't draw. So, and I think that if there's a question of, there's creativity in all areas from us, it's true. And I'm trying to own my own hand and my own voice. And what's my point of this? My point of this is, because I'm in this learning curve and people are responding to different things, I'm not sure what to focus on. And I don't know if I should be focusing on one thing, because I'm really just playing and experimenting. And then yesterday, the person that does my hair always has art shows, and she wants me to show her art in her salon. And what do I focus on? I mean, I guess I'm supposed to choose the thing that's really bringing the most joy for me. Do I show all of it? It's a quality problem, problem of luxury that I have. And do you have any thoughts on that?
I can tell you from my own experience that it's really important for me not to get too enamored with or caught up in what other people like.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
really a fringe benefit to have people like what I do, but it's very it can be very creativity stifling in a lot of ways for me to get too concerned with that. So I really just do what's the next indicated thing that feels like the most fun to me.
Right.
And let the chips fall where they may.
Okay.
There's something in you that knows what it is you want to create. There's something in you that's going to unfold for you as you move forward. You may not even get to know that thing very much before it happens.
That's true. All right.
So to me, that openness is what's so exciting. The second we start trying to hone in on it and get clear about it and make sure we know what's going to go into our show,
yeah,
that feels like the kiss of death to creativity for me. It's just like trying to control your business, trying to control how you're going to connect with people. We're back to the same conversation.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else, Mary, you wanted to?
No, that was a great answer.
So was there anything else in the chat, Mary, that you noticed?
Let me go back and look.
Wrote.
I see some nice comments. I think we covered
Living
it.
without health insurance.
Yeah. I mean, just to talk about something practical like that too. I think that we can often have again, these sort of fixed ideas about how we are going to go about doing something. And we can forget that we have tons of ideas that can come to us that we actually don't have to dismiss that sound crazy, you know? So I don't dismiss ideas that sound crazy anymore. In fact, I'm likely to execute on them. The crazier they sound, usually the more interesting they are and the more impact they have. So that's just a lesson that I've learned, and that includes around earning money too. Like if I've needed to earn money quickly to pay for an unexpected thing, I'll go, okay, how could I do that? Like, what is something that I could create that would be so massively helpful to people that they would pay me X amount? And I'll have the craziest ideas come to me, and I'll be like, okay, I'll try it. You know, I don't say no to myself anymore. I'm way more likely to say yes to something that sounds really out there. So yeah, that's my thought on things like that. And I've been in situations like that. I don't want it to sound like, you know, that I haven't. I've lived at the poverty line, and I know what that is like. But even in those situations, again, that was when I was really in the throes of all this post-traumatic stress disorder thinking. I still was able to pay for things. I still was able to figure out ways of, you know, buying food for myself and my kid.
I think the realization that once again about the thing happening, I have to find insurance or health insurance or whatever it is on a practical level. And all the thoughts about it are two separate things. You know, as we stop paying attention to all this commentary about whatever it is we need to do on a practical level to be able to keep moving along, the more we're open to possibilities and ideas that are new to us that can lead us down a road of finding those solutions. But, you know, when we're tied up in that thinking and that worrying and that obsessing, and, you know, our mind is pretty occupied. We're not seeing what's right in front of us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, whenever my thoughts get really loud and like red flashing lights, that's when I know I can really ignore them. It seems like the opposite is true. It seems like that's when we're supposed to really focus on them. That's when I know for sure that, whoa, I don't need to go there, because there's other answers. I don't need to listen to all those loud sirens and flashing lights.
So do we cover everything there in the chat?
I think so, yeah. Allison just said, I always have to remind myself there'll always be someone better than me, someone not as good as well. You can really only compare yourself to yourself. Yeah, and you know, a good and bad are so, or good and better or worse, it's also arbitrary. This is another type of thinking that I stopped listening to, is anything related to measurement, because it's all made up. So I just ignore it, because you can't measure human beings except in height or weight, but anything else beyond the basics like that, it can't be measured. So I don't look at good, better, best, worst. That isn't helpful to me. It feels like it's taking my focus off of what I want to do, which is really discover more about what's going on here in this thing called life.
That's so true, Mary. When, you know, as far as comparisons, some people are lower, you know, earlier in their career than I am. Some people are more advanced, they're better than I am. I don't entertain those thoughts when they come, because it is completely arbitrary. Someone can show up at a canvas and paint something, and it could end up in the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, it's also subjective. You know, the thing to focus in on for me is what am I giving in the moment? What's coming through me? What am I expressing? The rest of it is none of my business. You know, what people think of my art really is none of my business. It's bigger than me. I'm just here to keep sharing. So I don't know if that's helpful, Allison, but just dropping the whole conversation around comparison when it comes up can be really useful. So I think we're just 24 minutes over the call time. Just 24 minutes over it. This has been so fun, you guys. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to connect with Mary anymore, Mary, if you want to put your
Yeah, I'd love to
email or
have you visit
website.
me. And I have a YouTube channel as well. I also have a bunch of books on Amazon, most of which are very short reads. You might be interested in one that I wrote about creativity called 14 Creations. But they're on Amazon worldwide, and my website's just my name, maryschiller.com. And it's been really fun interacting with everybody. I've really enjoyed this, and thank you, Terry, for organizing it and for going forward, even though you had a lot of nervous thinking about it.
Thanks so much for joining us here, Mary, and thanks to everyone who came. And this is recorded, and I'll see how it goes when I get it on the other side, and hope to send it out and share it with people. So thanks for being here, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.